cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen, everybody. Thank you for being here today. And as you can see, we're taking a quick look back at Joy Reid saying that Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign. Well, you know, even Queen Latifah endorsed her. Wow. How could you possibly lose if Queen Latifah's endorsing you? But as you may have heard, Joy Reid's show was just canceled by MSNBC. She is off the air. And I have a feeling that she's going to be one of those cancelees who is going to try to make it on her own somewhere, because who the hell's going to hire her? Let's face it. And I have a feeling she's not going to get any traction whatsoever, unlike other people who have lost their jobs. Now, I'm not one to gloat over people losing their jobs, but if anybody can be, say, to deserve to lose it, I would say Joy Reid is right up there near the top of my list. So anyway, let's see what the boys on the Hill have to say about this breaking news about Joy Reid getting canceled by MSNBC.
Let's not move on before bidding a fond farewell to Joy Reid, someone who, in my view, evinced so many of the failings of progressive commentary. It should go without saying that she was biased, though in truth, everyone who does the work of being an opinion pundit is in some way biased, so that's not her real problem. The problem is she simply does not understand her enemies, the right, on any level whatsoever. This means her commentary was often wildly off base and pathologically unfair. My favorite Joy Reid quote, by the way, was this one. Education is code for white parents don't like the idea of teaching about race. Dissatisfied with your kid's education? Well, it's probably because you're a racist. Indeed, Joy Reid was obsessed with the idea that everybody she disagreed with was racist or fascist or worse, promoted by Russia. Indeed, Joy Reid was one of the chief enablers, most eager promoters of the Russia collusion hoax, the idea that the Trump campaign worked hand in hand with Russia to steal the 2016 election.
I wonder where Joy Reid sends her kids to school, if indeed she has kids. You know how parents in America, at least, that's how it works there. For those of you in Europe, where I am, who might not understand the system. But a typical thing American parents say is, oh, we need to move. We're going to move to a new place, you know, to a new neighborhood or to a new suburb because they have better schools. And I think we all know what that means. That is code. And everyone knows what it means. And even professional race baiters like Joy Reid like to send their kids to good schools, quote unquote.
From Hillary Clinton. Now that was bad enough, but Joy Reid's commentary became even more unhinged during the pandemic when she served as one of the most pro-mask, pro-lockdown commenters in the country. She shamed people for going to beaches. She tweeted that a picture of people hanging out on a beach in Miami was vile. The beach looked like a disease-ridden petri dish. The picture was actually an old one from 2019, before the pandemic, and her tweet was from March of 2021, a point at which most sane people had determined that, you know, you could safely have fun outside. But nothing tops her most recent election coverage. Before the election, she said not to trust the polls because she thought they were overstating Trump's chances. In fact, she accused Republican-leading pollsters of trying to lay the groundwork for Trump to claim the election was stolen from him once again. Now, we all know how that turned out. Trump won the election and was, if anything, slightly underestimated by the polls. But her post-election coverage was even crazier. She frequently blamed white women, the patriarchy, etc., for failing to vote for Kamala Harris to be president. You know who she refused to blame? Kamala Harris herself. Joy Reid called her campaign flawless. Let's actually watch some of that.
And I think it's important to say that, you know, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. She had Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. I mean, she had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift. She had the Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time.
Now, despite my joyful demeanor, I am in truth never thrilled when anybody loses their job. It's a very tough thing to have happen to you. I've never met Joy Reid. For all I know, she's a perfectly nice person. But I think that if you really believe, as she just said, Kamala Harris's campaign was flawlessly run, and your evidence of how great and successful it was is that even Queen Latifah came out in support of Kamala Harris, I think you're just very deeply out of touch with ordinary people. And that's not even getting into actually the main Joy Reid controversy from several years ago, is that she was accused of authoring these blog posts, if you recall, that were actually deeply homophobic, I think was the accusation against them. And she said she was hacked and that she never wrote them, but she clearly did write them. That was just a made-up lie. Not that it was the biggest deal ever, but it was weird as a professional journalist to lie about having I think it's clear she lied about authoring that post. But anyway, we don't know that she will be off MSNBC. It's just the show has been canceled. I don't know if she's parting ways with the network. Can't tell. Her staff has been let go. They were very irate finding that out after this news had already leaked to the press. I can certainly understand them being upset. This news did kind of come out of nowhere. I don't think people were expecting an imminent cancellation of her program. So I certainly feel for her staff in that regard.
So let me push back on many of the things you said.
Go for it.
Now, first of all, you mentioned that you'd never met her. I have met her a couple of times, though not for several years. She has always been very pleasant and nice to me. So that is part of it. But also, I think there are about 3 at least different strands to this whole story. Joy Reid should not be immune to criticism, obviously, nor should I, nor should you, nor should anyone. So there are valid criticisms. Then in this case, there is the question of who is making the criticism in the general discourse and why they are making that criticism. I think what we've seen is this social media explosion over this, because she is a polarizing figure, over what is at its root a fairly straightforward ratings decision. When you look at the ratings, more often than not, her total audience is a bit smaller than the show that precedes her, which is Ari Melber's show on MSNBC. If that is the case consistently in any form of linear television, where a lot depends on how you're judged against your lead-in, you're going to be in difficulty one way or another, whether people like you or not. Then there's a separate question, and this is where I think people like myself find ourselves reflexively defensive of Joy Reid whenever we see her being criticized by Megyn Kelly or Marjorie Taylor Greene or President Trump, as happened just a few hours before we're having this conversation. Megyn Kelly described her as the absolute worst person on television. I mean, frankly, Megyn Kelly would be a lot higher up on my list of the worst people on television than Joy Reid would be. Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about truth in journalism, most famously known for her Jewish space lasers theory. So I think whenever you get those people, then of course there's a natural inclination from people of even a moderately liberal disposition to defend Joy Reid. Now, the other thing is, some of the opposition to her, yes, the homophobic blog post thing was a bad moment for her. I don't think there's any question about that. And yes, there are certain comments, like anyone, including me, who is engaged in on-camera opinionating. There are things that you can object to or that we all put badly. My problem with some of the criticism of Joy Reid is that I think there has always been a strand of white conservatism in this country that hates to be reminded of racism and how frequently it crops up in American life and what a consistent thread it has been in American life.
Well, interesting comments here by the European guy on the Hill. I don't know his name, excuse me. Yeah, I think he's right to say that Joy Reid was probably canceled for poor ratings, poor performance, almost certainly. Anyone, obviously, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, all these legacy media, and indeed online media, they make their money by getting clicks and, by views and clicks, and therefore those pundits with controversial views, with hot takes, they tend to get more clicks. They tend to get engagement, as they say. And that's what everybody wants. So if Joy Reid, despite her saying, giving hot takes, complaining, coming out with controversial statements is par for the course, obviously. Ruffling feathers, trolling, that sort of thing. That's all par for the course. Joy Reid, however, apparently, she did her fair share of that. That's part of the job, indeed. But apparently there is a shrinking audience for that kind of content, at least her version of that kind of content. Because, of course, MSNBC, I mean, they're preaching to the choir, like all these channels. Fox has its audience, and MSNBC has its audience. So it's quite telling that the audience, MSNBC's audience, Joy Reid's audience, are obviously shrinking. If she was wildly successful, they wouldn't cancel her show. It really comes down to that. Now, the whole racism thing, yes, people, your typical, what I would call a cuck-servative, because I'm very unimpressed with American conservatives, or indeed European conservatives, so-called conservatives, where I live, is that, yeah, I think cuck-servative is a better term, because, in fact, they, all they do is, they complain about the liberals' latest ridiculous demands and all that. But then eventually they end up conceding to them for the most part. Or they concede, they complain and complain, they push back, and then 10 years later, they've actually, those demands have been exceeded. In other words, I'm not explaining well. It's basically sort of a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back sort of scenario that has been going on, certainly in the United States and in Europe too, for that matter, for many decades now, at least since the 1960s. Yeah, probably in the 1950s even, in some places. Certainly in the United States since the 1960s, for sure. So that's like 60 years. That's been going on. And where are we? Where has that got us? That's got us where we're at today. So in any case, I think this is part of an overall swing. The pendulum swings. It just swings. It takes time. And, it swings too far one way, it's starting to swing back the other. And I hope that it keeps on swinging because, the liberals and all the other, someone like Donald Trump and MAGA, they, as far as I'm concerned, they have all the right enemies. So we need to not just swing back to where we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. We need to swing back to where we were 50 years ago on many issues, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm a hardcore paleo conservative in American terms. A traditionalist. I just call myself a traditionalist, an arch traditionalist, if you will. So that's where we have it. It's interesting news. We'll see what else happens. Like I said, I very much doubt that Joy Reid will manage to do something like what Megyn Kelly did, who has been very successful on YouTube. She set up her own show on YouTube, and she's getting lots and lots of views. So I think that says it all, but I could be wrong. Maybe she'll find her audience. If so, more power to her. We need these crazy liberals and these crazy these Trump derangement syndrome sufferers. We need them because the more of them there are, the more of them that are out there spewing their bile, the more it turns off just ordinary people, even ordinary conservatives, or just ordinary people, even centrist type people. It's turning them off, obviously. So I'm all for it. Accelerate their decline. That's what they need. That's what we all need. And I'm looking forward to it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Oh, and by the way, thank you all I got quite a few subscriptions recently. A lot of you hit that subscribe button, and we are now past 6,000 subscribers. I'm very pleased with that. Thank you very much, all of you who took the time and the effort to subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Next stop, 10,000. How long will it take us to get there? But I'm still going, so please come back, watch more videos, comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.